Hey everyone, welcome to week 66. Today is day 4. Today is Thursday. This is our 4th day in our cobalt teal week. Let's see how we do.
Okay, let's get started. This is day 4. This is Thursday. This is our 4th day on our cobalt teal week. And I have to admit something. I honestly thought at the beginning of this week that this week couldn't just be about cobalt teal. Like, it doesn't make sense that it's about such a specific color, because I didn't want my paintings to be, bluish green. That's what I thought in my mind. I was like, if the week is about cobalt teal, then every single painting I'm going to do is going to clearly evidence the use of cobalt teal. And I was a little bit afraid of that. I think you have to walk a very fine line when you are trying to understand a color, where you don't just want to frame the color with a painting, almost like put straight cobalt teal down in your painting and then surround it by other colors that are just pointing at it. You don't want your painting to be so obviously cobalt teal. In my mind, what I wanted was the paintings to feel different. And I think that when compared to last week's endeavors, they are clearly different. I mean, there's no doubt that we're dealing with a whole other set of variables. And it is up to me, should I want to take advantage of them, to explore the possibilities that are at my disposal now that I've introduced particularly this amazing color. So I was a little insecure about calling this week cobalt teal. I didn't want to put the weight of the week in a single color, because in the end, there's other colors that have to come into play here. It is a primary color palette. There is a saturated yellow with the bismuth yellow. There is a saturated red with that quinacridone magenta that I'm very insecure about using also, and my trusted titanium white. Those three colors are working alongside cobalt teal, and it is up to me to configure a painting. It is up to me to make sense of the possibilities that are there, of the new chances I have to express myself. So initially I thought, well, the week is going to be about primary colors again. It's just about using a very simple primary color palette where there's a yellow that I'm used to using now, because bismuth yellow has become not my go-to yellow. My go-to yellow is still yellow ochre, but I've trusted bismuth yellow. I've put my trust in the hands of bismuth yellow. And throughout the months, years now, I would say, I think I understand it. I think I have a very firm grasp on what I can do with bismuth yellow. I can't say the same about the magenta, quinacridone magenta. I had a very kind of iffy experience with it a couple of months back, and it was dormant. Like, I haven't bought another tube. I bought one when we were doing some exercises last year, and I thought I could force myself to use it. I thought that I could push myself to incorporate that magenta into my palette, but I didn't do it. For some reason, I just didn't want to make the effort to think that that sole color could in some way replace what I do with my cad red and my alizarin crimson. Like, I find so many more expressive possibilities when I think of those two reds that are in my palette, that quinacridone magenta, yeah, sure, there's a beautiful saturation to it that I can't reach with the mix of those two colors of my two reds, cad red and alizarin, but I just wasn't willing to introduce it to my palette. I thought it was, in the best case scenario, redundant with what I could do with my two colors, and the only thing that it could give me was just a higher chroma. Cad red and alizarin both have really nice chroma, but when put together, when put alongside my other colors in the palette, those other colors tend to lower the saturation of my reds, and that brings the tone of my painting down to the grays that I traditionally love. So magenta for me, I thought it was going to be like a one-shot. I thought it was going to be just this curious pigment that I probably don't really use to its fullest potential. And then, like many colors that I have in my palette, sadly, I just put it aside and never use it again. I really thought that's what was going to happen with that quinacridone magenta. And I'm really happy that I gave myself the chance to resurrect it. What I couldn't really predict was that I needed that teal, I needed that hideous blue, that blue that I once thought only other people could use, to make me understand that maybe there is this beautiful harmony where everything is really punchy and saturated. I mean, my bismuth yellow becomes almost like a very friendly color when compared to the magenta and the cobalt teal. And it provides me with some illusion of control. I don't even know if that makes sense. But what's been clear about this palette throughout the days is that it's a very expressive palette. And the options that I have in terms of saturation are way up there. Like the richness that is available with these colors, oh my God, it's through the roof. I mean, if I wanted to, if I was careful with my palette, I could get colors that I don't think I would even know how to use. These are not the type of colors that make appearances in my paintings. If I looked back and I saw my painting portfolio throughout the years, 20 some odd years of painting, there are some colors here that I don't think I've ever painted before. There are some mixes that I've noticed in my palette that I'm like, okay, this is new. And it's such a weird, cool feeling when you're able to mix something that you've never mixed before, because I'm a very stubborn painter in the sense that I've chosen a palette that I think or I believe represents me. I really do. I believe that the colors that I've chosen, they're in my palette, not because I'm lazy and I don't want to look further and I don't want to have like all these different experiences with color. It's just that I know that that's me. I know that I don't have to look any further. Like they are there for me day in and day out. And I don't want to betray the relationship that we've constructed throughout the years by just beginning to introduce colors that are outside my sensibility with the hopes that maybe I can get to know some of these colors and eventually bring them over to my palette. No, again, I don't think it's laziness. I just really feel that there are times when you feel that you connect with something. And throughout my life, and I've told you guys this before, and this was very evident last week, I connect with grayness. So when I have colors that provide me with something that feels so foreign, it truly feels like this is my playground. I have no expectations of what to do with these colors because I don't know how to use them. So I let myself go. And I think yesterday with Josie, and this is the third time I paint Josie, by the way. I think she's a terrific young painter, and I think she has a portrait that's incredible. Oh, actually, this is the fourth. Yeah, this is the fourth time I've painted Josie. And I have to be honest, I got to give props to Marco Casalvieri. So this is my fourth attempt at Josie, and Marco did a tremendous painting of Josie. I mean, it's a perfect painting. The only thing that bothers me about that painting is that as soon as I wrote Marco to see if the painting was available, it had already sold. Somebody else had already bought it. I wanted that painting so badly. I think it's a tremendous painting of Josie. I'm afraid that all my attempts at Josie come up short because I really do think that Marco did a terrific job. What we do have, and we're very lucky, both Danny and I, very lucky to have a drawing of Josie that Sena Ajovi did. Sena, I hope I'm not butchering your name, so I apologize if I did. But Sena did this amazing drawing of Josie. So we do have Sena's drawing of Josie, and we would have loved to have that painting that Marco did of Josie. But we supported Marco by purchasing a painting he did afterwards that's truly remarkable. And it's really cool to mention both of them because they are terrific artists. And when speaking about the expressive nature of the palette that we're using during this week, I think Marco is a terrific reference for the mix that can be possible with having a naturalist foundation, but also a very expressive, almost modernist approach. And I know that combination sounds kind of weird, but there's been a lot of painters that have been capable of bridging that gap between naturalism and expressionism and modernism. So when I was doing yesterday's painting of Josie, I always have this drive to want to do like a Mela Mutter painting. Mela Mutter, for me, is one of the greatest portrait painters ever. She's not one of the greatest portrait painters at the turn of the century. No. She is one of the greatest portrait painters ever. I truly believe this. I think she is that fantastic. And my goal has always been to access so many of the things that she does so naturally with her own painting. Her paintings feel so human and at the same time so off. Like there's something weird and wrong with us. Because there is. I mean, we are messed up. And that's us. We are these damaged beings. That is our true nature. And I think she was able to tap into our essence, our very flawed essence. She is one of my North Stars. Honestly, Mela Mutter for me is absolutely huge. So she does that alongside Kupka, for example. We talked about Kupka a couple of days ago, and he's a tremendous painter. He's able to connect those three forces. Again, naturalism, expressionism, modernism. I think Wojciech Weiss, the Polish painter, he's one of the most talented, versatile painters I've ever seen in my life. He's like bottled up lightning. He's an incredible painter. So Weiss does it. Obviously, there's some Jacek Malszewski paintings where he does that too. He exhibits that too. He's a little more disciplined, I would say. Disciplined in the sense that he obeys a little bit more the rules of naturalism. But when he taps into his more expressive side, it's there. It's totally there. And who else would I think of? I would say Munch. I clearly don't have the courage to do a lot of what these amazing painters do. What's awesome is that they show me what lies ahead. They show me that if I would want to travel through this path, a lot of these doors would open up that would lead to some of the amazing things that they did with a lot of these paintings. I don't know if I'm quite there. I'm still scared. I can't find a better word for that, but I'm still very scared of a ton of things that they do so well. I mean, these were geniuses. What do I expect? I mean, there's obviously this huge precipice between my painting and their painting. But what's cool about it is that even though I can accept that these are my painting heroes, these are all torches that light up the way, I don't have to be as good as them. I don't have to understand myself by their standards, and I don't have to judge my paintings and compare them to theirs because I would always lose. That would be a lost battle even before I started painting, even before I picked up a brush. So I have to tell myself, okay, this is something that I could learn from. This is something that I could tap into. And weeks like this week and paintings like yesterday's of Josie just give me a chance to say, let's explore this side of me. Let's explore this side where instances of color don't have to make sense. And I think that because I'm letting myself believe that they don't have to make sense, because I'm trying to push the more expressive side of the options that are available to me through this palette, I think that the distortion that I tried out with Josie's portrait yesterday is also a way of me liberating myself from this rule set that I usually understand accompanies the naturalist effort. I always gravitate towards nature. That is also a part of my struggle, I would say. I'm not a painter that just takes this blind leap into this unknown territory and navigates it through painting. Like I said, I don't have that courage. I don't have that personality. So I always rely upon naturalism. I always rely upon rules of nature, the rules of this known universe to save my butt. I'm always going to be holding on to one branch before I spot the other branch and before I let go. It is within my personality to be very confident about the next step that I'm going to take. So, while I'm not able to liberate myself wholly from the things that tie me down, they do provide me with a little window to what could be. And it's up to me to recognize what I can do with those things. So, like I was saying, I think yesterday with Josie's portrait, it was so very cool to try and find the way in which color would just meld into the distortion of form. There are tons of little distortions that make up that portrait of Josie. Tons of decisions that are way off. They're totally wrong if you were to measure everything and check everything as if you were painting a very traditional portrait. But I wanted to do those things. I almost wanted to freehand all those rhythms that I would see in Josie's portrait because I felt form would echo beautifully what was going on in terms of color. And that's a very abstract thing for me to believe. You know, in my mind, I always separate the two. Color has nothing to do with form. Like if I think rationally about this, color has no incidence on form. I can describe the three-dimensionality of anything irrespective of color. Color doesn't matter in that sense. All that matters is value. I could paint myself green or yellow or blue and it wouldn't matter. if I am faithfully transcribing my values, then I am going to be able to describe form. So it was very weird for me to start associating a lot of the decisions that I was taking in terms of the distortion of form and thinking that those decisions could reinforce what I was doing with my color. I think that that's super cool. I never thought that I could relate those two. Like, this is one of those moments where this little light bulb lights up and it just shows you that, wow, the act of painting has a ton of relationships that I haven't even explored. I think that Josie gave me the opportunity to do that, so I'm super, super grateful to her. I think today's portrait, this empty, shadowy self-portrait where I'm describing myself only as this moment in my forehead, I think this is a kind of representation of me just trying to cleanse and purge myself so I can approach color with very innocent eyes. And I think that that's super important when we give ourselves the chance to learn about pigments that we've never used before. So I think a lot of what's going on today is just about my attitude and how I needed to approach this week. That's going to be it for today. Join us tomorrow where we finish up this week. I think tomorrow we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to explore the more light, atmospheric quality that this palette has to offer. So we'll see how that goes. But that's tomorrow. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you for hanging out. Love you guys. Bye.